Thanks to everyone who's joined today. We're going to be talking about really around our recent news release, which is centered around unlocking value on our two significant gold assets. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Gareth Garlick. He's Fortune Bay's Technical Director, and he'll help present today. We'll be making some forward-looking statements. If you'd like to look at those in more detail, they are available on our corporate presentation as well as on our website. We recently completed a $3 million non-brokered private placement. There was a strong demand on that financing. We did cap it at 3 million, always cognizant of dilution. Those proceeds are going to go towards these goals of unlocking value on our gold assets. That recent raise pushes out our outstanding shares a bit to just under 60 million, but still very tightly held. Options stand at 3.8 million and warrants 9.3 million. Some of those warrants are coming into the money, so can provide additional source of financing for us down the road. Our market cap is just around $30 million, and I say just because it's we have two tremendous gold assets, and I'll explain the value proposition through this presentation. We have a strong insider ownership with board and management owning around 17% of the company. So Fortune Bay has a significant set of diversified assets, most importantly our two gold projects where we have around a 3 million ounce drill-defined gold resource base. That's comprised of our Goldfields project in northern Saskatchewan with around 1.2 million ounces in current mineral resources, and our Pomarosa project, which has been newly named, it's formerly the Exvertan project, which has around 1.7 million ounces in historical resources. We're going to talk mostly about these projects today and give you an overview of our plans for those projects. We do, of course, have uranium projects on the Athabasca Basin margin on the northern side. That's the Mermac and Strike project, which are under an option agreement with Aero Energy. That option agreement was signed in late 2023, and work has gone really well and planned according to that agreement and is continuing on those two projects. We're looking to do something similar with the Woods projects, form an option agreement where someone can earn in and we can retain upside. I think the important thing about these uranium projects is they're not a focus for Fortune Bay, but they are partner funded, so it's non-dilutive to our company, and we can retain upside in those assets, and they also provide revenue through option fees, management fees, as well as rentals from our Uranium City infrastructure. That goes a long way to covering a portion of our G&A. So our news release announced some catalysts that we've planned for our two gold projects. At Goldfields, number one is an updated PEA, and Gareth's going to talk through that in a little bit of detail. Number two, we are commencing permitting for the project toward production. At Pomarosa, working toward exploration agreements with the aim to restart exploration in 2025. And finally, four, looking at those historical minerals resources at Pomarosa toward getting a 43-101 done to establish current mineral resources and also demonstrate the growth potential on the resource side. I'm going to hand over to Gareth.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think it's always worth a very quick recap on what Goldfields is all about for anyone who might be new to the project. It's located in northern Saskatchewan, which is a great mining jurisdiction, and for a far northern project, it has some significant infrastructure advantages. It's got direct road access from the town of Uranium City. There is a government-maintained ice road put in winter that provides access to the southern Saskatchewan road network, barge access in summer over Lake Athabasca, and there's a power line directly to site that could be refurbished to take advantage of 3 SaskPower hydroelectric stations that are located to the west. In terms of the resource, a substantial portion of the resources are at a high confidence indicated level already, and we're able to compare the resource estimate with historical underground mining, and that reconciliation provides a lot of comfort for how reliable the resource estimate actually is. This is a scenario for easy open pit mining with a favorably low strip ratio and a simple whole ore leach mill with a very high recovery percentage. The project is also endowed with an approved EIS from 2008 for an open pit mine and a mill at Box. So this comes with a load of existing baseline environmental data that we can leverage off of. And very important to us, we've worked really hard on maintaining strong relations with the local communities, and we do have an exploration agreement in place that effectively provides consent, of course, subject to the agreed upon conditions for all exploration and development work up to the completion of a feasibility study. Next slide. So on the back of all of that, we completed a PEA for the project at the end of 2022, generating some pretty compelling economics. At the more relevant upside price model of $1,950 per ounce, the after-tax NPV was up at $459 million, based on a relatively low capex of $234 million. Production of over 1,000 ounces or 100,000 ounces per year and a mine life of 8.3 years. Next slide. So moving the clock forward, that's a bit of a summary of the project. Moving the clock forward to where we now sit at a gold price of over $3,000 per ounce. This is obviously good news, and simply updating the PEA for a higher gold price would improve the economics, but it also introduces some complexity and some questions on scoping, because at a higher gold price, you can now potentially pull additional deeper resources at Box into the mine plan. And there's also scope to push the Athona pit a little wider and to expand to the south. So in both cases, you can include resources into the mine plan that the 2022 PEA didn't consider. And if you look on the right, you can clearly see the 2022 pit shells in black relative to the grade models. So there is obviously scope to expand and pull additional resources into the plan. And if we do this, increasing the resource footprint, it snowballs on throughout the project, as you need to ensure that the tailings facility, the waste rock storage, the ore stockpiles, that all of the project infrastructure can handle this extra material, and of course redesign and rescope as necessary. Another thing is that we also recently had Fuse Advisors. They're a consulting group based in Vancouver. They ran a scoping study on the project for us, looking at optimizing the economics and the permitting timeline, of course. And we're planning to build in a couple of scope changes around this and their recommendations there. So this overall updated PEA is not just plugging in the new gold price. It's an opportunity to cost effectively look at all of these and see what the best project in this current gold environment looks like, and set the stage for a future pre-feasibility or full feasibility study. And the PEA is being run by Ausenco, who's the same company who did it in 2022. So they have all the data and are well set up on to run the updated gold price and work through all of these scenarios. Next slide. We also thought it would be worth including a brief recap of the potential resource expansion and exploration potential at Goldfields. We have some great grades down dip of Box beyond the extents of the currently constrained mineral resources. We would really like to get some more drill coverage down there to confirm grade continuity between those intercepts, because that could support possible studies of underground mining potential. There are also still some fairly wide gaps in coverage down dip of Box, particularly on the northeast side, and we would obviously like to put some more exploration-oriented holes into that area to ensure we're not missing anything significant down dip of Box. Moving across to Athona, there is scope to extend the mineral resources to the west. There's a smaller west mine granite that needs a bit more infill drilling. The coverage there is not enough to convert to resources at this point, but that body crops out at surface, and it actually partially overlaps with the 2022 PEA pit extent. So that's an obvious place to add some incremental resources to the plan. On the exploration side, we do have some very compelling grades in some of the smaller occurrences at the project. We're very keen to do some along strike drilling at Golden Pond. They didn't properly test the structural orientation of that mineralized structure there. That gave us grades up to 16 grams a ton over 13 meters, and it's open to the northwest. So there's definitely some more work to do there. There are also some particular intercepts at Frontier. So Frontier is a hematized mine granite, visually very similar to Box. It's definitely significantly smaller, but it does look a lot in terms of morphology and visual presentation to Box. There's some drill intercepts there that were very compelling, but because of the limited overall size of the body, and it was being run as an individual project there, it wasn't combined with Box and Athona at the time. It was something that was walked away from at the time, but there's a clear opportunity there for a smaller number of short drill holes that could potentially define areas of interest to add in some more incremental project ounces. Obviously, any exploration drilling we do would be subject to additional financing, but it is something that we could look at doing alongside the small amount of additional drilling we would need to do to support higher confidence studies on the geotechnical, geochemical, and metallurgical side of things at Box when moving towards a pre-feas or a feasibility. I'll hand back over to Del now.
Yeah, hand in hand with the engineering work that's going to go on the PE side is, and really that's to optimize the project in terms of its scope from both an economical point of view, the project economics, as well as the development timeline. And the development timeline is key. We're obviously looking to optimize that and be able to bring the project into production as soon as possible. And we think it's prudent to start the permitting activities now, even though we're still in an updated PEA stage. The project has a vast repository of technical data. So we see working through a PFS and FS that can be certainly compressed. So the permitting is key to get underway. There's two components to that really. The first is the community consultation. The 2008 EIS that was awarded for the project did not have any significant consultation. There's now a greater onus on the proponents to provide that consultation. And that's certainly what we'll be doing. We have an exploration agreement already with the community's representative, Yati Neni, that includes consent subject to the conditions of the agreement for all our exploration activities up to and including a feasibility. So we're in a good position with the exploration and development work and have built a really solid foundation with the communities there. What's needed now is the project development consultation piece, where we'll be consulting with the communities around the potential mine. And we have a broad idea of how that mine is going to look based on the work that's been done to date. So we can start to talk to the communities about that. We're going to be starting an initial meeting with the representative this week with the view of actually undertaking individual consultations with the different communities and municipalities later this year. And we'll obviously design a plan and strategy for that. The second piece is the environmental baseline studies. Those are also expected to commence this year. There's two objectives there. The one is to address the change in project footprint. The original EIS that was granted was for much smaller open pit development at the Box deposit, and it included a flotation Merrill Crowe circuit. What we envisage for the project is bringing a Thona online quite early. That has not been permitted yet, as well as a tailing storage facility owing to the whole ore leach process we envisage from the processing side, which significantly improves the gold recoveries. So those are the two main scope changes, and those areas within the project need to be assessed environmentally, and therefore will require some additional data sets. The second reason is to verify the acceptability of the existing data. That approved EIS for Box contains there's a vast repository of historical data. We need to verify which of those data sets are still adequate and where additional data needs to be collected. But certainly having a legacy of historical environmental data does facilitate that timeline towards permitting. We have engaged with the consultants on the permitting side to help guide us through the process. Someone who's very experienced, and over the next week or two, we'll be doing what's called a gap analysis, looking at what data we have, what might be needed, and then designing field programs for later in the summer, particularly focused around those longer lead time items where it's sensible to start that data collection right away. All right, moving away from Goldfields to Pomarosa. We've renamed this project because it's really a new start for the project. There's been no work there for 16 years, and we're really excited to get going on this incredible opportunity. The word world-class is used sometimes quite lightly in the mining industry, but what we have at Pomarosa is truly a world-class geological setting. It's well established that the giant mineralized porphyry systems across North and South America are related to the subduction of these aseismic ridges or oceanic plateaus beneath the continental plates. And we see examples of that at Bingham Canyon, one of the world's greatest ore bodies, Cobra Panama, and Cascabel, Ecuador. All these projects have seen significant exploration, some in production, and are very large porphyry systems. We look down that western seaboard of North America from that Mendocino fracture zone, which is an aseismic ridge. We see the Tehuantepec Ridge, a very similar analogous setting where that's being subducted below the North American plate, right to our Pomarosa project. On the right is the regional magnetics for Chiapas, and we can see that large bullseye magnetic anomaly, which is this large intrusive complex sitting beneath the project. What's different here at Pomarosa is that this porphyry system has not undergone any exploration, any extensive exploration. There's been exploration in the thinner lithocap rocks where the gold resource was found, but deeper drilling is required to evaluate that system. If we zoom in on the regional geology of the area, we see that that large intrusive complex at depth. It's called the Ixhuatán complex. Daylights in a few places on our project and a bit more to the north. The cover rocks in the area are some volcanics, but there's also extensive limestones and evaporites, which are chemically favorable rocks for the precipitation of metals. And we know this is has a huge metal endowment, this area, and a very target-rich project. The exploration to date has really been focused in these thinner cover rocks, particularly in the limestones and the evaporite sequences, where numerous epithermal discoveries have been made across different zones in the project. The most notable to date being the Campamento zone. We just see some of those gold highlights there. Campamento, 100 meters at 12 gram a ton, but across the other zones, some notable intersections that also warrant additional follow-up together with an improved geological understanding of those. There's a very favorable also structural architecture in this area, so that needs to be better understood through more modern geophysics to help build up that target inventory. On the copper side, we know there's a large copper endowment in the system that really hasn't been the focus previously. At Cerro Lamina on our project, there's a hole of 600 meters at a 0.9% copper equivalent that starts from surface and ends in mineralization. There's also a highlight hole at Caracol, 67 meters at 2.1% copper equivalent, as well as the historical Santa Fe mine to the north, which is a multi-commodity deposit, but a significant copper component to that. So there's copper in the system, and it's just a case of focusing on that. We look at the project in more detail, and this is a map showing the the copper values in soils from sampling. Originally, the project was soil sampled, and the focus was really gold. The previous drilling that was done was linear gold and Kinross gold, both looking for gold deposits. And the exploration done then was quite simple. It was really soil sampling, looking at gold values in soil where you commonly get over a gram a ton, and drilling those soil anomalies led to the discovery of Campamento, led to the discovery of numerous other zones that warrant further exploration. What wasn't looked at is really the copper side, and there are numerous untested copper anomalies. We interpret these as leakage anomalies. They also have significant moly components, and those are coming up on structures from a larger porphyry system below. Also, there's incomplete soil coverage, so additional soil grid sampling warranted more broadly across the project to help realize the true distribution of those copper anomalies. Together with some modern geophysics, and the project really has none, is to really understand the copper distribution, understand the structure, understand the thickness and nature of the cover sediments, and look for alteration zones or mineralization potential beneath those thin cover rocks, and then embark on some probably some deeper drilling to test those zones. The project offers really multiple opportunities from a value and exploration and development perspective. At Campamento, it has a sufficient data set there to start working toward a PEA with its 1.7 million ounces in historical gold resources that will obviously bring into current resources. Campamento has the ability to expand as well. We see the footprint of the deposit here. It's open in places. We'll be looking at it in more detail. but clearly also space in the project to realize other discoveries. At Cerro Lamina, there's been significant drilling done, particularly by Kinross, and that has the ability to move to a resource, as well as some significant growth potential around that prospect. In that shallow lithocap zone, there's numerous existing targets that have been drilled previously but warrant further exploration. And then just on the basis of the soil geochemistry alone, 8 new areas have been identified based on the soil geochemistry pathfinders. And obviously increasing the soil grids will help add additional targets. And then the modern geophysics, which is expected to significantly upgrade the target inventory. That's in the lithocap zone, your real focus on the gold and a bit of silver exploration. And then the sleeping giant has really the porphyry copper potential with the gold. This large system spanning the entire concession needs to be understood and evaluated. And then also the testing of skarns that would be near surface, particularly in the northern part of the project, where we do have started to see association of copper with the limestones. I'm going to hand back to Gareth.
Okay, so this slide summarizes the, the historical mineral resources at Campamento. Of course, these were done for a previous operator. The combined mineral resources were previously reported at a 0.5 gram a ton cutoff, and this gave about 1.7 million ounces of gold. So the first obvious opportunity here is to update the resource for a more appropriate cutoff, which at the current gold price would likely be around 0.3 grams a ton. So just to kind of get a handle on what that might look like, various cutoff scenarios were run in that historical estimate, and that's shown in the tables on the right. And this suggests that at a 0.3 gram a ton cutoff, the combined gold resource could be over 2 million ounces. Then in terms of the models, it's difficult to illustrate well in 2 dimensions, as always, but what we're showing here is the mineralization shell in green that was modeled around the positive intercept. So the mineral resources were assigned to material inside those green shells. And if you look at the plan map, you can see that there's definitely some infill drilling to do. And then also to remember that the previous drilling was done in a very different gold price environment. And at these current prices, there's definitely scope to follow up and expand the mineralization footprint to the northeast and to the southwest, and potentially with depth too. So with that in mind, we've commissioned a study by Understood Mineral Resources. They're going to look at the historical data and reports to identify any scope for resource expansion. And then the main outcome from the study will be a recommendation on scope and work necessary to update the project technical report and bring these resources into our portfolio as current resources. So this should be relatively straightforward. The project data are all in good shape. All the drilling and sampling on the project was done in the late 2000s with proper QA/QC protocols, and all of the project, importantly, all of the project drill core is currently stored and available in a warehouse close to site. So the remaining half split core is available for all holes for review and resampling. So that also applies to the Cerro Lamina. If we can jump onto the next slide. So Cerro Lamina is a breccia pipe with copper gold mineralization that was discovered early on in the project history. And by the time the project kind of went into holding, there was over 30,000 meters of core drilled into it. And that work didn't ever result in the classification of a mineral resource because everything kind of stopped on the project. But this is another thing that Understood Mineral Resources will be looking at. There's a higher grade core here which is close to surface, and the drill spacing should be more than sufficient to be able to classify some inferred mineral resources for scoping studies. And there's also clear opportunity here to infill on the current coverage. And if you look at the schematic cartoon here, the entire body is interpreted to be faulted and offset, and that northern portion of the offset body that's shown in green there has clearly not been adequately tested or delineated at all. So that's clearly a great exploration opportunity to try and pull some more resources in. I'll hand back to Dale here.
A key component of the project is working with the communities. Prior to any field work happening, it is necessary to reach exploration agreements with the communities for exploration on the private or common use lands. Historically, the community relations have been done very successfully by our predecessor, Linear Gold. During 2003 to 2007, Linear Gold did a substantial amount of drilling on the project, very successfully with the communities. We've put together that same team, people who spent a lot of time on the ground, that were successful with the communities and still have good relationships with the communities, and been working with them to rebuild the relationships with a view to establishing exploration agreements. To date, and I've personally been down to the projects 4 times over the last few months. The meetings with those key communities have been very positive and supportive, and meetings are ongoing. We've also met with numerous other stakeholders for the projects, including state government, federal officials, church leaders, and we've received a tremendous amount of support to see some economic development in this area, in this particular part of Mexico. It's important to stress that our community engagement activities, while they are focused on reaching exploration agreements, we expanding those to really try to put in place and build a strong social foundation for the project that can not only lead to those exploration agreements, but provide that basis of support through our exploration activities and beyond. So we've really reaching out to all the stakeholders, the key communities, and building those relationships. And over the next few weeks, there are numerous other meetings planned, and everything done with a view to establishing exploration agreements and starting exploration work later in 2025, which would likely include airborne surveying and some soil sampling, with the potential to start drilling in 2026. So just wrapping up, it was nice to finish with a value proposition, and I feel that Fortune Bay's one is a very compelling one at this point in time. As we've stressed, we have plans to unlock value of our roughly 3 million ounces gold resource base that has tremendous amount of exploration upside. There's limited downside risk with that robust development asset in Saskatchewan. It checks many of the boxes for development projects. And certainly in today's gold market, it is, and we believe will become a mine in the near future. There's further upside through our partner-funded uranium projects. Those are being those are farmed out. They're option agreements where we can retain a significant equity stake and also provide some revenue for the company in terms of covering our G&A. We have an experienced board and management, and we are aligned with shareholders with our significant insider ownership, as well as a tight capital structure. That wraps up the presentation. So thanks everyone for listening in and your valuable time. We do have a few questions here. I'm just going to bring up our chat box. Thanks. Have we made a decision on the engineering company for the next steps? Well, we're working with Ausenco through this updated PEA. Obviously, they've done the 2022 PEA, so we're very familiar with the project already. And Ausenco is a leading Canadian company that's worked across numerous development projects, gold development projects in Canada and elsewhere. So very happy with the level of work they provide and the QPs for the project. Beyond a PEA, we'll potentially continue to work with Ausenco. We could look elsewhere. Obviously, as these projects get de-risked, you often bring in more specialist firms with specialist people for different components of the project. So that's really to be determined. Who's the best person to contact if you want to get involved? For inquiries, we're a pretty small, tight team. Gareth or myself are the best people to contact in that regard. And a final question, are you going to set up your own process plant or use an existing one? We'll be setting up our own plant. It will be a new plant that's built on site according to the scope of the project. I don't see any more questions, so thanks once again. One more question just came in here. Are there any other gold producers around the Goldfields project? There are not any other gold producers. The nearest producer would be SSR on the CB Santoy mine, which is further to the southeast of where we are. So it is a standalone gold asset. But, as Gareth pointed out, there's a significant amount of infrastructure in the area. And it's a mining community that understands mining. There's been mining in the past there, particularly uranium mines. So, you know, we feel it's a very suitable place to be developing a new project. Right, that wraps it up. So thanks everyone again, and keep well. Don't if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Gareth directly, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.